Check. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ashwin Mbedi. Welcome to this edition of NMH at 1 on the 30th of September 2021, where we will take a dip into the news cycle and headlines from across the country. Among the many troubling stories that abound, Agriculture, Water and Land Reform Minister Kale Schlettwein told Parliament yesterday that NamWater now sits with just over 500 million Namibian dollars in unpaid water bills, following government's decision to open taps amid the COVID-19 pandemic. He, however, emphasized the directive that no water lines must be suspended still stands. Meanwhile, Schlettwein explained that the Rundu water crisis is not deliberate, adding that the situation at the riverside town is that they have a prepaid water system, and because residents failed to buy water, the system shut them out. Today's COVID-19 monitor looks at infection among healthcare workers, as well as quarantine data for Namibia and its regions. Both indicators continue to show overall downward trends. Since Friday, for 4 days running, no new cases were reported in this frontline group. Over the 7-day cycle ending on Monday, a total of 8 health workers tested positive. 4 of these results were announced on Thursday. The cases were distributed as follows. 4 were reported in the Hardap region and 1 case in Oshikoto, Karas, Oshozonjupa, and the capital city of Windhoek. On Saturday, the number of people accommodated in official quarantine facilities again dipped below 1,000 and on Monday stood at 850. During the past 7-day cycle, 887 individuals entered these facilities, while 1,040 were discharged and could return home or continue with their journeys. The number of quarantined people in Orongo over this period decreased from 180 to 100, and totals for Kunene and Karas remained unchanged. Quarantinees in Omaheke were 195 before dropping to 82 by Monday. Slight increases in numbers were recorded in the regions of Omusati, Zambezi and Hardap, but those under quarantine in the Oshikoto region decreased from 144 to 125. According to the latest data, 180,000 people have been fully vaccinated against COVID-19. Another 70,000 have taken a first shot of vaccine types that still require a follow-up injection. Let's have a look at today's video contributions. All People's Party APP Secretary General Vincent Kanyetu weighs in on the situation where Rundu had no electricity and water since Monday. Kenya Kambowe reports.
Can you just briefly tell us what you make of the recent happenings in Rundu about the lack of electricity and water?
Thank you very much. It's actually a very, very bad situation that we unfortunately find ourselves as residents of Rundu these past days. One, electricity and water, those are some of the things people need much more in town than ever. When you look at what has transpired during these few days, businesses has lost, not only businesses, individuals, including the hospitals. So I also know that people died in hospital as a result of the electricity and the water shortage. So therefore we saw yesterday NamWater gave an apology, but that's also not enough. It must come with a compensation. Be that it may that it's an emergency, nobody expected that well, but there must be something in return because people lost heavily. And with the water case, it's just unfortunate. Every time we have been changing council, this time around, I think the best thing Rundu can do is to call upon all the senior managers of Rundu Town Council to resign with immediate effect because they are failure, they are doing nothing, we are paying them for doing nothing and for making the situation worse. So we just have a new council, the new council who is also unable to solve the water issues, but to just give excuses and stuff. So this time around, I think the heads must roll of the senior management staff of the Rundu Council. Everybody must just resign and we pick up people in the street to fill those vacant posts.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, sir.
Thank you.
The Gender Ministry is holding a 3-day workshop in Ongwediva to amend the Child Care and Protection Act of 2015 that replaced an act of 1960. However, it only became operational in 2019. While enforcing the act requires more staff, the required human resources are, however, limited. Tuyemo Haidula reports.
2 reasons why we are looking at it. First is that there are some instances where we have not covered issues in the Act. Therefore, it's very difficult to implement them. For example, surrogacy is a practice which is happening now in the ministry, in the country, but it's not covered under the Act. Secondly, also, there are issues where the Act is very difficult to implement. Therefore, we are looking at how we could make it easier for implementation. And lastly, it's actually just for the social workers to be on the same page. As we go through the Act, we test the understanding of everybody so that we do a uniform implementation across the ministry.
The ministry has mentioned that per child, per 13,000 children in Namibia, they have one social worker. How is the ministry working around that and to make sure that every child does get an opportunity to be able to speak to a social worker and not just dealing with crisis and perhaps dealing with prevention rather?
That's a very difficult issue we are dealing with. We have a total of 83 social workers across the country. As you know, the children population in Namibia is around 900,000. Therefore, we are actually aging a lot of the private sector. The other issue is that we have a high turnover of social workers, which means they move from one organization to another. You train them today, the next day they are working for somebody else. So it's a true challenge that as a nation all of us need to look at. Whether it's NGOs, whether it's churches, whether it's other community-based organizations, we need all of us to come together and really look on how we are going to make sure that counseling and all the work which is needed to the community happens. Because there is a challenge. There's nothing much we can do about it. It's 83, that's all we have.
The U.S. government, by way of its charge d'affaires Jessica Long, earlier this week handed over Pfizer vaccines to Namibia. This clip was compiled.
I'm proud to be here today to welcome the arrival of 100,620 doses of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine. It's a vaccine that's being used in the United States by Americans. It's the vaccine I received, the vaccine my husband received, and the vaccine my mother received. This donation of vaccines by the United States will help Namibians stay healthy and it will save lives. The vaccines represent part of the U.S. government commitment to supporting Namibia's fight against the pandemic. And that commitment will continue. America has made a commitment to share U.S. vaccine supply with the world, and today we are proud to be sharing that with Namibia. As President Biden has said, the United States is committed to bringing the same urgency to international vaccination efforts that we have demonstrated at home.
Let's have a look at the front pages of the national daily newspapers. Allgemeine Zeitung takes a look at the fundamentally contradicting views of experts on the question of whether or not uranium mining should be permitted in the Leonardville area. The Russian mining company Rosatom, pronounced Rosatom, locally represented by its Namibian branch Headspring Investments, did not have much success thus far in their attempts to calm the minds of the surrounding affected farmers during meetings in the area. Republican puts focus on the traumatizing experience of a divorced father and his 3-year-old boy when on Friday afternoon a group of armed police and defense force members arrived with a social worker to remove the boy from his father's care. According to the father, the social worker acted without a court order and there was no investigation or evidence that he is unfit as a parent. The father says since the forced removal, the young boy has been experiencing nightmares and has a fear of roadblocks and men in uniform. Today's Confidante exposes a nasty land battle which has broken out at Satins Loch in the Windhoek rural constituency after some members of the local community confronted white people who they accuse of land grabbing. Police had to be called in to quell the tension with racist slurs and apparent murder threats as part of the angry scenes. The traditional Komamin chief Juliana Khawanas had earlier allegedly given land to businessman Fran Lowe and his family, to the dismay of residents who have argued that the land should be reserved for the Komamin people. Namibian Sun leads with the news that more than 50 students from the Namibia University of Science and Technology were evicted earlier this month after the university failed to settle a 2.5 million Namibian dollar accommodation bill at a private establishment. 3 of NUST senior officials have been suspended over their role in the saga, namely Donovan Zeeland as Director of the Department of Student Services, Oliver Kwarambi as Director of Facilities, and the lecturer Lance Hawanga. One of the biggest ongoing government contracts in the country for the supply of food to schools countrywide looks set for a fresh scramble for tenders. The Namibian reports as its front page lead. The chairman of the Central Procurement Board, Patrick Swartz, is worried about the constant delays in the awarding of this 3.6 billion Namibian dollar contract that has faced an onslaught of legal challenges over the years. The lead story of the new era is that of Labour Minister Utoni Nuyoma's civil court case for defamation against a weekly newspaper being referred for mediation. A High Court judge has given the parties opportunity to try and reach a settlement and has postponed the case until 26 October. The weekly Windhoek Observer newspaper, which has turned exclusively online, published an article titled "Farmer Accuses Nuyoma of Extortion," which the minister considers defamatory to him. Let's have a look at the insides of today's dailies. On the Market Watch, the Minister of Industrialization and Trade, Lucia Ipumbu, has encouraged Namibians to support local businesses in order to create an environment for the country to become self-sustaining. She said the reality is that foreign imports dominated the local market and that local producers, manufacturers and entrepreneurs find it difficult to access retail shelf space for a variety of reasons. In Allgemeine Zeitung, the Ministry of the Environment is concerned that the East Asian black market demand for ivory indicates that Namibia must remain vigilant if the country is to maintain its successes of the last years in controlling elephant poaching. Daniel Steitels, a researcher who has specialized in illegal markets and the trade in the game and game products for decades, warns that the recent spike in black market ivory prices in Vietnam and China is worrying. Spike says once the world has the coronavirus under control, poaching could soar again. Namibian Sun reports on a statement by FENATA, the Federation of Namibian Tourism Associations, following its recent meeting where all of the member associations presented a united front under the leadership of Netumbo Nashandi as chairlady. The national umbrella body also officially distanced itself from the NNTF, Namibia Travel and Tourism Forum, due to its so-called malicious attacks and slander of established tourism bodies. Republican reports on different whale species that were washed ashore in the areas of Langstrand, Swakopmund and Henties Bay since last Friday. According to a researcher from the Namibian Dolphin Project, 8 humpback whales had been washed ashore since the start of their annual northern migration in June this year, of which one was found alive and could be assisted back into the ocean. The emergence of southern right whale near Swakopmund last week was a much more rare occurrence than the commonly known humpback whale. New Era takes a look at the Windhoek City Council, where the Independent Patriots for Change yesterday unveiled the accountant and businessman Jurgen Hecht as the replacement to be sworn in as a replacement for former Councillor Philemon Hambuda, who resigned in August. Hecht was not on the IPC initial list of 15 candidates submitted to the Electoral Commission ahead of last year's local authority election, but the party has defended its inclusion. And finally, the desperate situation of residents of Rundu is the subject of the Namibian's Page 3 story today. The town has been without water for more than a week, worsened by a prolonged water outage since Monday morning. Residents are currently forced to turn to the contaminated Okavango River for water, while all schools and tertiary institutions have been forced to close until the situation recovers.
Strike it gold and win 5,000 Namibian dollars in cash with Neo Paints. Simply buy Neo Paints products from the selected range and stand a chance to get one of 12 mystery buckets filled with gold paint. All 12 winners will each get 3 extra paint buckets equal to their purchase. One to replace the gold paint, the second to use on your project, and the third to give to a charity of their choice. One winner can score another 10,000 Namibian dollars by showing us your creative use of the golden paint. The best project wins the cash. Offer is valid from 27 September to 18 December at your favorite hardware store nationwide. Visit us at neopaints.com for more competition details and follow us on Facebook for weekly competition updates. Neo Paints, a coat of excellence.
Thank you for joining us on NMH at 1, your reliable source for lunchtime news. We'll be back once again tomorrow. Until then, check out the weather.